Welcome to the Kingdom Women Podcast, a podcast by and for women who seek to fully and freely live the gospel reality of Christ's kingdom come. Through our candid conversations here, our desire is that our union with Christ will deepen and that his kingdom will come in us and through us, that we all may be free indeed.
So here we are again. Last season, we discussed biblical womanhood, and we knocked apart some nonsense that's been erected about what it is and what it's not. This season, we're discussing relationships in Christ's kingdom. Naturally, the question keeps coming up: if the way we've been looking at God's plan for women and men in relationships has been skewed, how then shall we live? Judy Beachy, Sarah Ornelas, and Sarah Nisley from our own Kingdom Women's podcast have assured us they know what it's like to live in marriage relationships that are honoring and freeing and empowering as Christ intended all relationships in his kingdom to be. So we beg them to show us, to tell us, to answer our questions. And their husbands have agreed to come on with them and let us listen in while they talk together about how their relationships work out based on Christ's kingdom model of mutual servanthood and honor. And we are giving the time now to Jason and Judy Beachy, Noel and Sarah Ornelas, and Joel and Sarah Nisley. You can start off by telling us a little about yourselves if you like, and after that, take it where you want it to go. Maybe you can pretend that we're sitting around a fire with you and you're hearing our questions and you're just sharing about how it all works for you. So brief introductions and go. The Beachies first.
Well, we're Jason and Judy Beachy, and this is, I've never done anything anywhere close to this. So this is new, all new for me, and I'm a little nervous, and I don't do real well getting my thoughts together. But Judy helps me really well with that, and I don't know what else to say.
Well, we've been married 20 years, which isn't that long, really. And some of those years have been really good, and some of those years have been really rough. But Jason says, you know how we're supposed to smooth off each other's rough edges? We don't really do that. He says we knock them off. We whack them off.
I say we whack them off.
And so we've had a lot of edges knocked off over the years, and it feels like in the last several years we finally, I don't know, let go of some of the expectations that we both felt like we had to.
Expectations and demands.
Yeah, that we felt like we had to live up to, and just found our own rhythm. And it's been really, really sweet.
Whether our own expectations or other people's expectations.
That's great.
And now we're living in marital bliss.
No more problemos.
Let's not talk about last week, shall we?
Well, Judy sounds like it's pretty good, so we're expecting it.
Well, you've heard, Gwen, you've heard some of the not pretty good pieces of our story too. I think I've shared with you. So, you know, it's been we've battled to get to where we are. We really have, but it's been worth it.
I think we've been fairly real with each other. I think we've loved hard, and we've fought hard, and we've loved hard.
Yeah.
And usually we put in 100% with each other, and I think it's enriched. It's made our marriage better, and I think we've gotten to know each other in a way that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Well, I'm excited to hear more. Joel and Sarah Nisley.
We've been married for 8 years, going on 9, I guess.
Feels like it's been longer, and at the same time it feels like it hasn't been very long at all. But so I guess we're kind of still newlyweds. I mean, I don't know.
Well, and with the health issues and things, some of that time was kind of spent concentrating on those. I mean, or like it took a lot of the energy and
it's like we kind of are emerging out of this fog of me being sick for most of our marriage, and all of a sudden we're kind of discovering each other again.
Aw.
Well, Noel and Sarah yet?
Yeah, we've been married for 10.5 years. 7 months after we got married, we headed to Tanzania for our first stint there.
Our first house there, our first bed in Tanzania was 2 student cots. Like they were made with like lumber with like a frame around them that were each, I don't know, not even 3 feet wide, pushed together with little 2-inch foam mats on them. And that was our bed. I'm not sure why that was important.
But yeah,
That's
so
roughing it.
we didn't have, a lot of support going through those years of just family input, church input. So we kind of had to struggle through those things, and
sometimes I think that was a good thing.
Yeah, we felt like it was somebody hit fast forward. Just all the stresses of crossing cultures and learning how to communicate with each other was, but the Lord has been faithful and has brought us through, and we are, we're best friends and love to talk about theology and kingdom visions and
Dream together. And do together.
Yeah. Do adventures.
I would say our marriage went through a crash course, like Noel was saying, in Tanzania. What I thought marriage should look like and what it actually looked like 2 years, 3 years into it, coming back from Tanzania, were 2 pretty different things, and it was good changes. I knew I especially was gonna crash and die if I kept trying to live up to these expectations. So anyways, it was good for us. And then we were all alone. We just had to talk to each other.
Well, I think that's a great place to start. Just tell us what your expectations were and how they have changed. And then you others get in on that same question. That was one of the questions that we wanted you to discuss.
Expectations. What changed from expectations we had or ideas of marriage that we had before marriage? I think we talked about it, and both of us kind of came through the homeschooling movement. Sarah's family was involved in Bill Gothard from
when I was 10.
And my family never got into that, but kind of brushed up against it a lot. Growing up, I would have been mostly exposed to the complementarianism and kind of patriarchal. Husband has full control of direction the buck stops with him on making major decisions. So that's what I grew up as the ideal man, ideal husband. And my dad, he was a lot like I am, just pretty laid back. And so I saw, Dad was a very gentle leader. So I had that as an example, but and so in our early marriage, I felt a lot of pressure, not necessarily from Sarah, although she would have held to those beliefs as well, but just trying to force myself into that kind of more aggressive leadership, I guess, which is not my personality.
And for me, I
like
had
that.
totally embraced the idea of submission being silence and self-subjection. And so I was always trying to figure out what he wanted to make it happen and suppress my own, fears and thoughts and visions, and just try and make what I thought he wanted to happen. But that's not my personality. My personality is extremely expressive. And I mean, I was 30 when we married, and I already was running my own business. And so I went from making all of my adult decisions to suddenly like, what do you want for dinner tonight, honey? And he like literally didn't care what I cooked for dinner, but I still like had those expectations. I mean, that's a very minor thing, but yeah. And the other thing was like, okay. So the other thing was like, though, in spiritual things, we also like, we think our values are very much the same, but the way we process spiritual things is a lot different. I'm very like, okay, give me a framework, give me a structure. And how do you describe yourself more?
I love to explore new ideas and just try new things out. New ideas.
And new ideas, especially in our early marriage, scared me because I had already departed from Baptist Bill Gothard fundamentalism to become into the Anabaptist circles. And so I had like these really clear things that I could explain and defend to my fundamentalist background friends. But I felt like I could reassure them that I do hang on to these. and when Noel and I were dating, he would bring out some of these really far out ideas. And I was like, that was threatening to me and scary to me. So I have certainly enjoyed learning to be comfortable with exploring new ideas. But it was scary to me. I was like, how am I going to explain that to everyone? That you think what? You know, more image control, I guess. That was on me. Yeah.
Well, that's actually very relatable. This is Jason and Judy now. Very relatable, especially the pieces about the internal and external pressures on, and tried to live up to.
Yeah, when right before we got married, my dad told me that basically that I need to there's times I'm going to need to sit on my wife. And
how'd that work out for you?
And and I kind of took that to heart. And
no,
you wasn't sat on very easy, sadly. Or gladly.
And then when we were in service in Canada, a co-worker told me the same thing, and by then I had realized that, you know what, that really doesn't work, especially with her.
It's like sitting on a cushion.
I'm not saying that negatively. And so, and by then I knew it wasn't right. And it didn't work for us. I knew that. And so I told the guy when he told me that I need to just sit on her, I said, I don't think my role as a leader is to sit on her, but my role and squash her vision and dreams. But I think my role as a leader is to direct that energy and to direct those dreams and goals. But with that, it took me years to really get there, and I'm still getting there.
Oh, you're pretty close.
But it took me a long time I knew what I wanted, where I wanted to be, but I wasn't quite sure how it looked and what it. Yeah, I had to rethink and restructure my thinking, or I'm not sure what the right word is.
Reorganize your framework.
It's like Paul says, what I really want to do, I don't do, and the things I don't want to do. But yeah, I think we're at a pretty good place compared to where we were.
I'd like to ask a question that brings up, how do you direct her vision. Is that where you are now? And how does that look?
Well, I think one of the ways is to hear her dreams. Like, and this was another thing that I felt like was required of me, is to be the one with the vision, to be the one with the ideas, and come up with. I felt like as a leader, that was my job. I needed to do that, and I just couldn't. It just wasn't there. It's still not there, really. But I think one of the things that I needed to do was just to allow Judy for me to hear her dreams and her goals and her visions, and give her the space to I was going to say concoct. That's not the word I want. Give her the space to just to share those and to grow those, and then with that, talk through with her. And if I don't feel good about something she's doing, I'll tell her. It's not like I tell her, no, you can't. I'll just say, well, I don't know. It's more like a give and take. I'll give my input, but it's not like I feel like I have to make her do it or not do it, whatever the situation may be.
Yeah, I bought into that too. Like I felt like I'm clearly in our marriage, I'm the one with all the vision and the ideas and the energy. Even like Noel described himself as very laid back, and so is Jason. Like he is. This is often how it goes for us, even with small things. Judy has the idea, let's grow a garden, let's put a garden in the backyard and get a tiller and make this thing happen. Well, so I get everybody gung-ho, let's go do this. And then I get discouraged. And then guess who is just like Mr. Persistent, not quitting. When I'm ready to throw in the towel because this isn't working out. And he's like, no, we're going to see this through. And we're a good team that way. Like, and that's just a minor example. And actually our garden is a success. That's not even a good example because it's not a true example. But I am in our marriage, I am the visionary. But then Jason reins me in when I get a little too far out crazy, or he comes along and makes happen. Like I might have vision, but then he comes along and sees what needs done to really flesh out the vision. And that's been true of different things we've gotten involved in, different just caring for people or projects around the house or different things like that. So I felt like, with all that pressure that to be a submissive wife, that I need to like lose myself sort of, and just quit being this crazy idea woman, and just quit having vision and and goals and whatever. And I needed to, like Sarah was saying, back his up. But I had a hard time pulling out of him what his vision was. Should I just tell a story about you? So when we were first married, and I would ask him, like, what does he dream of doing? What is he, or maybe it's even when we were dating, with his life. And he just wanted to be a dad, and I'm like, a dad, like, okay, so what else? Well, that was what he dreamed of ever since he was a little boy. When other kids would want to be a policeman and a fireman, he wanted to be a dad. And he is an awesome dad. And he's taught me so much about the Father heart of God. So I'm supposed to get me with all these visions just bubbling out of me without me even trying, all this grand and glorious stuff that I'm seeing that I could get involved in. I have to like kill that to support him. That was the pressure I felt.
And she doesn't make a very good dad.
Yeah. And so I had, to wrestle through that and figure out what this looks like. That was intense because it didn't work for me to try to kill who I was, to conform to the external pressure, to be the kind of wife I thought I was supposed to be. And he didn't even like me when I was like that. So yeah, that didn't work.
We were both 28 when we got married, and we had some really, really rough times. And I've told people that if we wouldn't have believed that it was wrong to get divorced, I think we'd have separated. It was really rough.
It was.
Really rough. And then it's gradually gotten better over the years. But I think part of that was just the expectation that we had of ourselves, of each other, of what other people thought that we should be or shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And it's been 20 years of figuring out what we think and what we believe God is showing us and how he's leading
What
us.
he actually says about marriage.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, do you think God designs couples to complement each other like that? Never really saying that one person has to be exactly one thing and the other, because God puts you with the kind of person you need. I mean, I don't know, maybe God doesn't make mistakes, but I think that I think that God sets us up with somebody that we could complement, and not in the complementarian type way either.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Exactly.
I think one of the beautiful things about marriage is that a man represents one part of who God is, and a woman represents another part. And together, I feel like Judy and I can represent who God is in a way that I can't by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And neither can she by herself. And it's not that we can't represent who God is by ourselves. That's not my point, but that's just part of the beauty of men and women, is that together we can, whether it's in a marriage or whether it's in a church, together we can represent better who God is than we can by ourselves.
I think it can be really easy to distort the picture of who God is by listening to what other people say about marriage instead of looking to God and seeing his heart about the whole thing.
Yeah.
When you're talking, it's sort of probably half of our audience isn't going to get this reference, but there's a scene in a movie where this prince is being set up, coming to America. This prince is being set up with his soon-to-be fiance, and this big elaborate procession. She comes in and they meet each other for the first time, and he asks her, what kind of food do you like to eat? And, oh, whatever you would like. And it's 20 minutes of her doing that. And that was totally my image of what marriage was supposed to be. I was a Debbie Pearl groupie. Transformed Wife was like on my follow page on Facebook. Like I was big into that. I have like probably an entire bookshelf of books like that, which I don't know if they're going to survive in our next book purge. But that was my thought of marriage. I would call Joel up. It's like, can I go grocery shopping? Like, here's my shopping list. Like, and he's like, I don't care. I really don't. Just yeah. Did I forget to give you the debit card, or And I think that kind of the stuff we went through, I realized I could depend on Joel physically, like when I was really physically weak and I couldn't take care of myself. I could depend on him like that, but I could depend on him to protect who God made me to be. And that was important, that I didn't just need to shut that down to build up his dreams. It's like we can build together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shared mission.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we decided that I didn't really have, my expectations didn't change that much. We got married. I would say my parents were a good model of a relationship the way it's supposed to be. My dad does a really good job of he's very humble. He's very much of a servant leader, has a servant heart. And so I think that was my model, rather than all these people. I don't think I've read any of those books or anything, but that was or listen to those kinds of people. But that was my model, and I think that was my picture of what how marriage is supposed to reflect Christ in the church. And then my mom, actually, my dad has an 8th grade education. My mom was a registered nurse, so she had some college. But he reads a lot, and he's studied a lot on his own. But but my mom has plenty of opinions. But he does well at valuing her input and her opinions, and and making decisions from that. I'd say it works together well, and at a certain point, she where they may have different viewpoints, she'll share her viewpoint, and then support what the decision he comes to, if it's something like that somebody has to decide one thing or the other.
Yeah, but she's definitely not a super meek and quiet person. I remember being shocked. I think we weren't even engaged yet, and we went up to visit your parents, and like she was telling your dad where to drive, and I was like, how could she like be so insubordinate? Like, what's going on? Like, you're supposed to turn here. Like, I would never say that to John. I had some growing up to do. Yeah, exactly. Like, no, here, Maynard, that one, you just passed it. Like, you know, and that was shocking. Oh boy.
Yeah, I definitely got a lot of people. I mean, I had several different men in my life, pastors and others, that spoke to me. You're going to have to marry a really strong man, or you're going to run the household. And so I had heard this spoken over my life many times. And actually one of our pastors expressed concern over our relationship in the very beginning, because they perceived Noel as not that strong man that Sarah needed. But what I discovered with Noel is, yeah, he may not be smashing me down every day, but he was not intimidated by me. And I realized that a lot of these supposedly strong men types were intimidated by me, and felt my expressing an opinion brought something out in them that they felt threatened, instead of just treating me like an adult and being able to give and take and respond, you know, like an adult to my questions and opinions. It was a threat to them. And Noel was not threatened. He would still express his opinions, and very different opinions sometimes. And it was so freeing to be with someone who wasn't threatened by me. And I just realized that was super, super important and exactly what I needed. And all those people who spoke that into my life, it made my love and submission to him a choice. You know, probably if I had married one of these strong guys, I would have just been smashed down, and I would probably not be a very growing person. I don't know, whatever. But to love him, to work together with him, to dig out his heart and find out his thoughts from someone who's not stomping them all over me, has taken more of a conscious choice and more of a Christ-like decision-making process than just submitting to whatever this strong leader type that you need supposedly was shoving down my throat.
I would submit, Sarah, that you actually did marry a strong man.
I did.
You married a stronger man than what they were proposing you should marry.
Exactly.
Because I look at men like my Jason, apparently your Noel, and they are some of the strongest men because they aren't shook by women who have a personality or an opinion or a, you know, and that they're the security, like the, what's the word I want? The self-awareness. What's the word that I want? They're not insecure, and there's a strength in that. Like they're safe.
Yeah.
They're safe.
Yeah. They have nothing. Noel even reflects that in his relationships with other men. And I feel like that's probably, he's not threatened by them having a different opinion for him. He doesn't have to come out all nails and bats fight for his perspective on something. He says it, he explains it, and if they have a different opinion, that's not going to end his day. You know, he moves on.
No, I definitely thought I wanted a Michael Pearl type, which scares me now. The idea of you throwing knives and all, yeah, anyway, you. But I think there's something really freeing, and it gives a lot of security to know I can completely like lose my mind on something and panic and freak out. And Joel's just kind of sitting there like waiting for me to be done. You know, in the end, he can tease out where we're going to go, and I can trust the decision he's going to make. Like he makes decisions with me at the center. I mean, God's at the center of it, but if he's looking at decisions that are going to affect both of us, he considers me before himself. And that's something I saw when we were dating. And I don't think that's the mentality that says a man needs to be, you know, the decision maker in a home. It doesn't have that. And that doesn't reflect Jesus at all. Jesus doesn't put himself at the center of anything. He does everything for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that has helped me be, well, one thing that I've observed in myself is that as I am more okay with, as I realize the things that Judy has to bring to the marriage and has the things that I can learn from her, the more I can just be okay with myself as well. It's when I feel like I need to be something that is somebody else's expectations, or if I'm not realizing what she has to offer and who she is, then I try to get out of who I really am. It's kind of like at work. I'm a supervisor at work, and there's guys that have been there a lot longer than I have. And if I can't make all the decisions by myself, I pull guys in all the time, every day. Hey, what should we do here? What's the best way to design this cabinet or to build this piece? And I see we've learned to do that as well. And she's free to give it. And I want that. I can't do it by myself. I don't want to be the leader by myself. I want to do it together.
It's fun to do it together.
It is.
Oh, okay. I thought there was.
Maybe something you all could address is people who are naturally, like you're saying that the commanding type isn't your personality, but maybe you all could, or at some point, could address what if people are that naturally commanding like type? What are they supposed, you know, what they're supposed to do, you know?
You mean if a man's that way?
Mm. Yeah, like what if
Sounds
the natural thing is just to lead go and not listen or not have input?
Sure.
That's
We
a
should have
good
got
question.
somebody. We should have got somebody like that on. No.
What Joel, are you more of that kind of like take the bull by the horns and get her done kind of guy?
He can be that way.
I can kind of be, yeah. My dad's first question when I was talking about courting Sarah is asked if she was calm. He thought I needed somebody calm, I guess. But I can kind of, I think as in our relationship, I could be the more steady one. I can be that way if I need to be. That's kind of, and I think that's where we kind of complement each other.
We both hate conflict. Hate conflict.
And I would say there are times that I get that Sarah has to calm me down.
Yep.
I'd say that happens too. It's kind of, we trade off.
Yeah.
That was a yep.
Same, but now I'm curious, Sarah. You say you both hate conflict. Do you hate it for the same reason? Do you avoid conflict for the same reason?
Probably. I think both of us value what we have in our relationship so much that we don't want to lose it. We don't want to see that get marred by annoying each other too much. But I don't know. I think it kind of boils down to when we've had conflicts. I mean, like I said, Joel's really good at considering me when it comes to decisions that he's making. but I can trust that, the times that he is decisive and there's a decision that's going to be made, regardless of the concerns I've expressed or whatever, if he's going to make a decision that crosses what I want or what I feel is right, I trust him. Like, there have been a handful of times where I'm like, this is the wrong decision and I don't know why we're doing this. And I'm sitting in a corner panicking and he's like, we're doing it anyway. and I trusted him through it. And, sometimes he was right. Sometimes I give him a hard time about it.
And sometimes he's not, and it's still okay, right? Like,
right.
Who says we have to always make the perfect decisions? God's in it anyway.
Right. I mean, like, there are times that he just had to make a definite decision, and I kind of want to lollygag and decide for an hour or a month or whatever. And he's had to just go, it's going to be this way, Sarah, and we have to go somewhere, and we're going. And that's where, when I jumped into this crazy thing, like, we're both in the yoke together, and at a certain point, I have to stop balking and go. But I trust him because he considers me every time.
Yeah, I try to get as much information. I mean, get your perspective and make the best informed decision I can.
This reminds me of another question that we've discussed some, that in defense of male headship, we often hear people say, someone has to have the final word. It's an interesting concept, since there are lots of relationships in this world where there isn't one who has the final word. But I'm just wondering, how does that work in your relationship? Do you find that true? Do you think that's a biblical concept, that someone has to have the final word? I just love to hear from you on it.
I don't know. Noel, have we ever run into a point, where you've had to make a decision? I mean, theoretically, that's kind of what our fallback would be, but I don't know that we've ever run into a point where we haven't been able to come, to pretty much total unity by the time we've had to make a major decision, have we?
Something that comes to mind, kind of in our earlier marriage, was when we had gone to Tanzania, and we had our first daughter born there, and
in a mud hut with a grass roof.
We were only supposed to go. We were only supposed to go for 3 months.
Yeah, that's true.
3 months. We had committed to 3 months.
Yeah.
And then the missionary couple asked us to fill in for them while they come back home on furlough. So that added another 6 months.
Yeah. It kept getting longer and longer. I can't remember.
So yeah, it was just kind of a indefinite, like, we don't really know how long this is going to be, and it was extremely tough on Sarah back in those days. We lived very primitively. She was trying to learn the language. She didn't have a lot of time to study. She was trying to learn how to cook over charcoal, and And I got pregnant with my second baby 4 months after I had my first. I don't know how I did that to her.
Well, you know how you did it to me.
Wait, I was just say, hold on a minute here.
I mean all the other stuff.
Oh, all the other stuff.
Not what you said.
Okay.
Why did you have the time?
Okay, so when the missionary family came back, they wanted us to stay on for another
school term.
We had an English course that we would do for 3 months. So they wanted to do that, wanted me to do that again. And so yeah, how far along with Ellie?
Till we made a decision, or till
Yeah.
I can't remember, pretty far along. I know we came home only 2 months before I had her, however that worked out.
Yeah. And so I felt like we can do this, and you know, I really loved the work there, and
I had gotten super sick, ended up in the hospital. I had lost 20 pounds, and And I was just struggling on every level. I'm feeling like a failure, literally in every area of my life. That's where I was at emotionally. Yeah.
And growing up, I read so many missionary biographies where they put everything on the line.
Buried their wife and sang over the grave.
Yeah. Say goodbye to their children, put them in boarding schools, and like everything you sacrifice for the gospel.
Yeah.
And so I remember just really being conflicted about it, because I saw this could potentially just burn my wife out. And yet I felt, if we run away to safety, that's not really spiritual. So I remember going, spending a day up on the mountain praying.
That's right, yeah.
And and I was just and I came, like, I felt like we should say, I felt like the Lord gave me the passage about Caleb and Joshua, and how that they said it's our enemies are going to be bread for us, and so then I come down and Sarah just lost it. She just started weeping, and yeah, I came to see that just the importance of our relationship, and just seeing the importance to care for my wife above my ideal of what our ministry should look like.
And it was really interesting because I totally believe that I should just support that decision, but I was literally feeling, thoughts like I'm going to die. I probably would have had some kind of mental breakdown, or I think that's the direction I was headed. But the Lord intervened, and I don't know, whatever our authorities were, I don't remember who exactly it was, stepped in and said, you know what? We would rather you go home. And I don't even know, I don't think I was telling anybody I'm burning out, but somebody stepped in and said, we think you should actually come home. Some mission board or church leadership, I can't remember who it was, said you should come home because we'd like you to go back again someday, and we don't want you to burn out. And so the Lord intervened there and sent us home, even though I had accepted that decision. And I think the Lord used that whole process to help both of us evaluate how are we making decisions, and how should we make decisions going forward.
Yeah.
Our marriage was really different after that, I would say. Yeah.
So how would you say it's different now? We're
not afraid to be honest about our needs and see that as part of our whole selves. And to see self strengthening the inner man as being part of our ministry.
And then the decision-making process, is that different for you too now?
I
had actually totally forgotten about that until he told the story right now. I can't think of any other time where he said, can you? We're going to do this. And I was like, I don't know that it's happened again. We've learned to work things.
And in my single years, the way I would seek the Lord's will, it was a lot having to do with confirmations and things that would happen that would give me assurance that this is His will. And so I was more, I don't know.
And I was more practical. This is not going to work because XYZ. and had very little faith, and he was all about the faith, and it doesn't matter about XYZ. So like if we empty our bank account to meet this person's need, we will not be able to pay our rent next month, honey. Like those were some literal conversations we had. And he was like, don't you have any faith?
So would you men say that the Lord also speaks through your wives?
Yeah,
Or
Absolutely.
you're the spiritual
Absolutely.
leader, you know? Is there two ways of looking at it? Because I think some men would say, well, God gives me more of the final say or the final vision, and disregard some of what their wives say.
I think
Yeah,
the Holy
I think-
Spirit is neuter. Gender neuter, or gender neutral, I should say. I mean, I would absolutely say that God speaks through Judy just as much and sometimes more than through me.
Yeah, and I think the beautiful thing is that she's learned to be more stepping out in faith, and I've also learned the value of planning, and so yeah, so we've both
learned
grown
from
in
each
that
other.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
done things since then that I thought were impossible, but we had decided that this is what God wants us to do. And so we kept pressing ahead right into the impossible. Like we were just telling the children the other night, we sponsored a refugee family when our income, we didn't really sponsor them. It was just an opportunity that fell into our laps. It wasn't through any organization, but we decided, we felt we had this was from the Lord to help them. And our income was so low, like so low. I don't even know how we were paying our own bills, but then we ended up needing to help this family with all these expenses. And it was really faith building for me, because it would have been clear to both of us that the Lord did want us to reach out to this family and help them. And the financial needs were a huge part of that, but the Lord came through time and time and time again and met those needs. And so that was a good time for me to see God is there. Yeah.
I think one thing on that, maybe clarify on that, what you were saying, I think it's basic on major decisions. I would say we generally are on the same page. I mean, we make them together, but the more talking on small things like the
Sure.
plans that we've made with other people or something, and do we, yeah, when do we call it off?
He's good at making me follow through on decisions that we've already made.
I think Jason and I were talking about this the other night, because we knew this was one of the questions on the list. And I don't know that we make any major decisions, either he or I. Like we don't move ahead with things until we're both at peace with it and both agreeing to move forward. And in that, like I feel that he trusts my judgment in that, and I trust his in that, and that the Holy Spirit is working through each of us for his timing in some of that. And I don't know.
And it's not even always that we 100% agree, but we're okay with it, and
Yeah.
we're comfortable with the decision.
Well, even like some of the things you're talking about, the mistakes of decisions that our husbands might make, or we might make, or whatever, like they might look like mistakes. Well, I'm thinking about when we moved into the city, that was Jason's vision. That was something God had given him vision for, that I wasn't exactly willing to do. And I got on board with it, and things didn't go the way we had hoped with the ministry that we were involved in, and with the dreams and goals and ideals that we had for that. I still don't consider it a mistake, because maybe it didn't turn out the way that Jason envisioned or I envisioned or whatever, but God directed our steps, and there were things that we experienced. I just can't say that he didn't hear from God by getting that vision, and I can't say that we made a mistake to move ahead into that. I think God, I struggled with that. I did. And it shook my trust in his discernment for a season when things were really rough. But in hindsight, I can look back and say that was not a mistake. Was it difficult? Did it go as we planned? Yes, it was difficult. No, it did not go as we planned. It was painful in many ways, but God was in it the whole way through. And so sometimes we just step out in faith. We don't know how it's going to turn out. And sometimes I lay aside what I would prefer for his preference, and he does the same for me. Yeah, it's just that mutual laying down our lives and submitting to each other, and there's give and take. He's not the command man taking charge and I'm just toting along behind him. And I'm not the matriarch making things happen. And he's just like, yes, mama.
Yeah,
exactly.
If I want to get her riled up, I'll say, yes, Mom.
Oh, no.
I think that the concept that, okay, there's got to be someone who makes the final decision kind of assumes this adversarial relationship between men and women, that like, a woman's going to get all uppity and ornery if a man doesn't just like put his foot down and like, and that's just such a stupid view of men and women. I mean, am I saying that there aren't some women that are just going to argue with their husbands on everything and never let him make a decision? Like, well, I'm sure those kind of women exist, but I think they mostly exist in imagination.
Yeah, the boogeyman.
Right. It's like I think most women that get married realize A, their husband's not a moron, and B, the man knows his wife is not a moron, and that they're in it together.
I think that it makes a difference. I mean, if they're believers, or they're, you'd have,
Yeah. I mean, is it a view of a relationship between a man and a woman as Christ and the church, or is it like a king and his little peon that he's got to sit on, or they'll stage an uprising and burn down the castle?
Oh, like the story in Kings about Rehoboam and how people told him we needed to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good story of how patriarchy doesn't work, right?
I was thinking about a passage in Isaiah. I should probably pull it up, but it says, you'll hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk you in it, when you turn to the right hand or when you turn to the left. And we come to places in life where we make decisions, and sometimes we make the wrong decisions. That does not mean we are not walking with the Lord. We are still listening for his voice. Even after we made the decision, and he still has the okay to say, this is the way, walk in it when we go to the right hand or to the left, or he has the freedom to say, actually adjust your course a little here. And just because we adjust course doesn't mean someone wasn't listening to the Lord or someone was walking. It just means a decision was made that isn't working out now.
Right. And sometimes those decisions not working out have nothing to do with the decision we made. There's so many factors involved.
Yes,
which was the case for us. Like, if we had the freedom to do what we envisioned, but there were other people involved that affected that. And so
that was okay.
Yeah, God was big enough to cover that too.
Even if we didn't necessarily agree with some of the other decisions made, but it was okay. We came to a point where it was okay, and that's very much how marriage is. We don't always, like for us, we don't always agree, but it's okay. And we're together in it, like somebody said, no matter what.
Yeah.
I just wanted to interject with something that I think Joel said something about it making a difference if both are believers. And we are definitely talking about kingdom relationships here, and that's important, but I don't want us to leave the impression that people who are not believers, that the guy's always lording it over the woman, because there are some beautiful, equitable relationships who don't know Christ at all. So I just wanted to clarify that. Some of these things are just relationships, and they're not going to work, or they are going to work no matter whether you're believers or not. So I don't know if I'm making
God's principles work regardless whether you believe in them or not.
For sure. I mean, I think that it takes a certain amount of strength to do it really, really well, and that strength comes from God. But like, my parents are agnostics or atheists, and their marriage is a really good example in some points of just like pulling together and working together, and it works that way. I mean, they they kind of taught me how to fight fair, I guess. I think looking on as a child, like seeing my parents have conflicts and work them out together, like that was good for me, and it's kind of transferred into our marriage. Like, I mean, our kids, I mean, I don't think we've ever fought, but like our kids have seen us disagree and sat there and hash it out and come to a decision together. And I think that's fantastic for them. Like, I don't know, I was terrified to like disagree with Joel about anything in front of my kids. Like, you know, Joel like is like, yeah, you know, like I really like this kind of food, and like I hate and despise that kind of food, but I can't say that because the kids are watching. And it's like, nah, I think it's so good for them to see a little bit of healthy conflict that we work through together.
How do our kids learn conflict resolution? Is that what you're going to say?
Exactly.
If they don't see us in conflict and resolving it. Yeah, we don't have our big whatever knockdown drag-outs in front of them.
But and also, how are they going to learn to, yeah, like you said, conflict resolution? How are they going to see us? How are they going to learn to apologize? How are they going to learn to make things right if they don't observe what led up to that? And
Yeah.
I'm not saying do it intentionally in front of them,
Right.
but it's okay. They can. It can be a training just as much as any other part of our training our children.
And even recently, when Jason and I were in a not as fun spot, our middle son.
How many years ago was that?
About 14. or was that just 14 hours ago?
Maybe
No.
last week.
No, it was a few weeks ago when I don't even know what the issue was, but I was not happy with you and you were not happy with me. And there you are. Anyway, and our middle son is really sensitive. Like he's very in tune to people and relationships. And I could tell he was concerned, you know, it was concerning to him. So I just talked to him. I said, yeah, like right now, Daddy and I, we're having a disagreement and we're not very happy with each other, but we're going to work it out because we are committed and we're going to work it out and it's all going to be okay. And he almost visibly relaxed, kind of gave me a hug, walked away. And I don't even feel bad about that because it's healthy for him to know that even good marriages have tension and conflict, but we're committed. And I am more committed than ever to us, to him, and to my own well-being, like you were saying, Sarah, earlier, and to our marriage. Like early in our marriage, I think in the first year, when we would travel, I would read to Jason while we drove, and I read the book by Walter Wanger, and I highly recommend it, called As for Me and My House. And he refers, and at the time I did not grasp what he was saying fully, but he talked about that there's a man, there's a woman, and there's this third entity. There's the marriage. And you guard the marriage. Yes, you want to care for him. Yes, you need to make sure you are healthy. But there's this third entity that you protect and fight for. And I get that in a way I didn't then. And for my son to see me say, or to hear me say, yes, we are in conflict right now, but I am committed to our marriage, and to your dad and to myself. Our children need to hear these messages.
Oh, that's good.
I think the last question on our list was, how do you men encourage or enable your wife to develop into her full capabilities, spiritually, mentally, in talents, or educationally? It's something we don't always think about as Mennonite women, or even Christian women, you know, like in developing far beyond being a housewife or being a mom, being a wife. But I see you guys have all done that. How did you, or what gave you the idea? How did you get the inspiration? Do you have advice for other men or women? I mean, anybody can answer this one.
Well, I'd like to boast on Noel here a little bit. when we got married, I was a midwife. I've been in practice on my own for I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and he even when we were dating, he's like, man, I wish I could see you doing your work, but nobody wants me to come to their birth, but I would just love to see what you excel at. And he was super excited about my career, my interest, my passion. And that was affirming to me even when we were dating, just to have him speak words of encouragement and excitement about my chosen path. And even after we got married, we had friends in the first year of marriage who wanted me to come to their births, and I was like, oh yeah, absolutely, you go. And on the mission field, sometimes I think I helped with about 30 different ladies in our village have babies. And every time he was like, oh, he would drop things, stay home, watch the kids, make sure I could go and exercise that gift and talent that I had. And that was, I was not expecting that from our background, from our setting. I was just like, okay, there goes my 12 years of midwifery training and apprenticeship and all that. I guess that part of my life is done. And he always encouraged me to keep it going. And I'll just say this, just recently, I've had an opportunity with a midwife who's been asking me to go on births with her again recently. And he's been 100% for it. Now we both, I'm homeschooling. I want to be around my little children. And we both have that shared goal that, he works 50 hours a week or whatever. So we have this, obviously someone needs to care for our children. And I'm happy to be primarily fulfilling that role, but he's supportive of me needing to get a babysitter or I'll be gone at night delivering the baby. And obviously he's there alone with the kids, but it's not too hard in the middle of the night watching them by himself. So, but anyways, all that to say, he's never expected me to not be a midwife anymore. And I can see how, as we move out of the very little stage, that it will probably work its way back into my life. I don't know, in some form or another, more and more. And he's totally positive about that. Not that we won't have to evaluate each step along the way and say, how's this working for us as a family, for our shared goals, for our mutual visions for our home and family and children. But he's excited about that part of me and he encourages it. And that's just amazing to me and something I consider a gift, especially in our settings, because I know not everybody would be excited about that.
That is the one career though that's okay.
It is the one okay career, which is always like everyone having their dozen babies, they want their midwives around. So but I think the thing is, I know he would feel the same way if I was a brain surgeon. He would be like, you've had your 5 babies, why don't you, get your continuing ed back up again or whatever. And in fact, we've talked about going for more medical education together as a couple even. So who knows what will happen.
That mentality takes being in love with a woman and not in love with a role filler.
Yeah.
Wow. Good word.
Yes. Yeah, he didn't just have a baby haver. He didn't just marry a baby haver.
A baby haver. I want to say to women who might be listening to this, your greatest joy may be homemaking, or mothering your own children, and that is fabulous. If that is, I know I've heard you say, Rosanna, that your greatest joy would be if you could have just stayed home with your children.
That's all I wanted to be. I wanted to be a mom. Yeah.
And you weren't. That was denied you, and I'm really sad about that. But there are other women who have the same desire and get to do that, and that's beautiful. And then there's other women like Sarah and I who have probably a dozen dreams popping through our mind every day of things we were getting involved in or whatever. And the energy that we have, if I sit on that energy, I just about implode, And I'm married to a man who's just pushes me out there and says, "Go do it." I'm here to back you up in that. It's powerful, and I say, may their tribe increase.
That's one of the things I was thinking, because I think God pushed me out of my comfort zone to make me grow in ways that I wouldn't have grown if I hadn't been out of it. I'm not saying that everything that happened God wanted to happen in my life, but he did allow it. But I think that's what every woman at some point thinks in her life, who am I? Why am I here? Why did God create me? What does he have for me to do? And I think there are married women who need to be maybe just nudged a little to get out of that comfort zone.
I wanted to be nothing more than a mother when I had young children. I found total fulfillment in being a mother. And it seemed that during that season, all other ambitions stilled. But now that my youngest is 18 and he's in college, all these joyful possibilities are coming back to me. And so this is a little off subject, but just speaking to women who love mothering, it may even be for this season. I would not trade those years of being a mom, but I don't want to feel finished because that part of my life is done. There's could be 40 years ahead and I want to live it fully.
Yeah, it's good.
Something that Joel does really excellently is, right now I have got a 9-month-old and I've got a 5-year-old and I've got a 7-year-old and we're homeschooling and I have chronic illness. And some days I tell Joel, I will be completely tickled pink if everybody makes it to dinner.
Yes, definitely know that.
And he empowers me. Some days I'm just like, Joel, take the kids for 2 hours. I need to clean the bathroom. And I'm just like, I clean that bathroom and I'm just, I'm so excited. And that is what I need to do. But he also sees 10 years down the road, I want to write books, and he's not going to let me forget that either.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not going to let me forget that I have a vision to be a very active grandma and be able to be there for my kids. I don't think he's going to let me forget that either. I don't know how you do it.
Isn't it fun to be each other's number one cheerleader? I love watching Jason do what he's good at. I love that. And he tells me he loves seeing me do what I'm good at, and rejoicing in each other's strengths and callings and giftings and purposes, celebrating that and not feeling threatened by it. I think that's one thing that, in our marriage, and I think I've mentioned this in previous episodes, in some ways it feels like we're the reverse of what is expected in our culture, where I'm the visionary and I'm the whatever. I'm the kind of the talkative one, and he is too. I have more masculine leadership abilities, what we call masculine, leadership abilities maybe. And he is more of a support person, typically by personality. And that's been some of the pressure that we felt, not okay to be who we are. But when I see where he shines, and I bless that and get excited about that, and he does the same for me, and we're both empowering each other to be fully who God made us to be, and to do what God designed us to do, purposed for us with our personalities and our giftings. That is the most, what's the word? Fulfilling and empowering, and it's the best place to live.
There's life there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Unless there's something burning in your hearts to share yet, I'm thinking we could move into just a bit of advice that you would have for a courting couple, a young married couple. What advice do you wish someone had told you and you had listened to way back at the beginning?
Maybe this could be our wrap-up question like we usually do, I think.
When we got married on our wedding day, one of my friends that had gotten married before us told us that he advised us to just take the day and just enjoy it. Like, just enjoy each other. Don't worry about things go right or wrong. Don't worry about, you planned it, let it happen what happens. And I think there's some value in maybe just in a marriage in that. Like, enjoy each other. Yeah, there's planning that goes into it. There's some decisions that need to be made. But I think we can get so hung up in the details that we don't enjoy each other, and we don't enjoy what we have to offer and what the other person has to offer. And I think that's the advice I would give. Enjoy each other, learn, get your own rhythm.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, what you're trying, try something else. I remember that's, there's something good that my dad told me. If it doesn't work, try something else. I know I kind of gave maybe a negative vibe from my dad, but he did teach me a lot of things. That's one of the things that he taught me, is that if it doesn't work, try something else. And if that doesn't work, like, find something that works for you, and it may not be what you expect or what other people expect.
Another thing that we actually committed to when we were dating, and then maybe this has been one of the saving graces of our relationship, is, people say that communication is the key to good relationship. And we just kind of decided that you can communicate till you're blue in the face and say a whole lot of nothing. But honesty is actually a foundational for good relationship. And we committed to being honest with each other about our feelings, about everything. And I can't, it's not like we've always done that perfectly and well, but that was the underlying commitment when we began our relationship. And I would say that to any couple. Like, you've got to be honest with each other. You've got to, don't hold back, but be honest.
My youngest brother, Tim, just got married. And one of the things I shared with him was that one of the things Sarah and I had a kind of a difficult time learning was our ways of or our different types of spirituality, maybe, and like the things that would touch her heart and stand out to her, and the way she would express that to me. We were just very different. And I guess I always pictured, always having these sweet, times of having devotions together and really, connecting that way. That's not how it's been. We kind of have our own things and seeking the Lord, and then when the Lord speaks to us or shows us something, then we'll share that with each other. But yeah, we come at it different ways.
So differently, yeah. And that's okay. And that was hard for me, because I could tell when I would share something early. We had devotions together, and we'd read a passage, and I'd be like, oh, this stands out to me for XYZ. And he would just kind of be like, uh-huh. And I was like, oh, I don't know. We were not feeling it.
I'd be like, actually.
Yeah. Sorry about this.
I was just at a women's meeting on Saturday where the speaker talked about our spiritual love languages. And you just described it perfectly. Different things minister to you because you're different people. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. And just learning how to appreciate that, and that's okay. You're different in your spirits.
Yeah.
And you connect with the Lord in different ways, and that's great. And don't think that the other is being unspiritual, or or that you're not spiritual enough, but just to give that freedom and to learn from each other and appreciate I think can be a big thing.
Probably if I was talking to a young woman who is courting, especially from a conservative background, I would probably tell her to try him, not in the sense of challenge him or be obnoxious, obviously, or unchristlike, but if you have a different thought, please share it now and watch his response. Is he threatened by that? Is he welcoming of that? How does he respond to you? Does he treat you with respect? And of course, always assuming she needs to be treating him as well with Christ-like respect and honor. But I'm really thankful that Noel was where he was with Christ, because, well, I didn't really want to get married to anyone. I don't think I would have fallen for anybody other than Noel. But it took him some persuading. I don't know. He asked me to court him 3 times, but so that's a whole nother story. But however that was, the point being, my mindset was like, not to speak my mind. And I just think he wouldn't have known what he was getting either. And it wouldn't have been fair to him either to not see the whole me. And so I would tell girls, be you 100%. Express yourself. If you do not feel like you can express yourself with freedom and joy, there's something wrong in your relationship.
That's excellent. Let's hear from Joel and Sarah.
I think that so much of the key is, and looking back on it, I would even say to myself, know who you are in Christ, know how much you are valued as one of his children, not just as a woman, but you're a disciple, and that means something. But then also know who he created you to be uniquely, and look at what makes you you. I mean, yeah, you might be a wife and you might be a mother, but you're more than that. You're designed exactly the way you're supposed to be. And don't be afraid of that changing. Like, you're gonna change when you go through stuff, when you have children, as you get older, you're going to change, and sometimes you turn around and you don't recognize yourself. And don't be afraid to change, and give your husband the same kind of grace. I mean, Joel's been pretty steady as we've been married, but my perspective on him has changed. And that used to scare me, and now I welcome it, and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I was trying to think if I had any advice that we didn't already cover. I can't think of anything.
Sarah, I just want to say that was really good. That is so foundational. Like, knowing who you are and in Christ, and who Christ says you are, and how he's made you, and embracing that and bringing that fully. I think that is just so key. And I see that in you, in your marriage, and yeah, it's really cool.
These bits of advice have been wonderful, and I hope there's some courting couples that get to hear it. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been so much fun to meet your husbands, to meet you men. We've heard a lot about you. God bless you all, and we'll see some of you next time.
The Kingdom Women Podcast is a member of the Kingdom Outpost Podcast Network. For more articles and podcasts and resources regarding living in the kingdom, go to www.kingdomoutpost.org.